The Wars of the Roses, yes, there were a number of them, is a story of English civil wars, when two branches of the House of Plantagenet, House of Lancaster and House of York, fought for possession of the crown. Eventually, the wars eliminated male lines of both families. Without these wars, Henry VII would have had no chance of seizing the throne.
So what were these Wars of the Roses?
The name itself refers to heraldic badges. Red rose represented the House of Lancaster and white rose represented the House of York. Let's make a reservation right away that this name, Wars of the Roses, was not used during the period of those wars.
The term first appeared in David Hume's History of England and came into widespread use in the 19th century. In Part 1 of William Shakespeare's play Henry VI, there is a scene set in the gardens of the Temple Church, where the opposing sides choose roses of different colors.
Plantagenet. Let him that is a true-born gentleman and stands upon the honour of his birth, if he suppose that I have pleaded truth, from off this briar pluck a white rose with me.
Somerset. Let him that is no coward nor no flatterer, but dare maintain the party of the truth, pluck a red rose from off this thorn with me.
So, the Wars of the Roses is a long period of political instability, in which both kings and nobility played their roles.
The nobility had titles that allowed them to sit in the House of Lords. There are 5 degrees of nobility: dukes, marquises, earls, viscounts, barons.
This political instability has spilled over into open civil wars several times, the main of which are 3.
The Third War period ended during the reign of Henry VII.
It is assumed that the confrontation was between the two main houses, Lancaster and York, although the division between the rivals was not so strictly defined and many participants changed sides often.
Henry VII was maternal Lancaster, after Margaret Beaufort, who, as a descendant of the King Edward III, passed a disputed claim to the English throne to her son, although Henry was named Tudor, after his father, Edmund Tudor.
Henry himself did not take a direct part in this conflict until his first attempt to land in England in 1483. Let's see if Henry VII, knowing the history of his predecessors, could expect to stay on the throne for a long time. Of the 10 kings who ruled in the country before him, only 4 were able to keep the throne until their death. Edward II, deposed by Parliament, killed.
Edward III died peacefully.
Richard II, usurped by Henry IV, died in captivity.
Henry IV died peacefully.
Henry V died peacefully. Mark this king, as his wife, Catherine of France, married Owen Tudor, grandfather of our protagonist, Henry VII.
Henry VI, usurped by Edward IV from House of York.
Edward IV, usurped by Lancastrians. Henry VI restored.
Again Henry VI, usurped by Edward IV, killed.
And again Edward IV, presumed to die peacefully, but there are rumors that he might have been poisoned.
Edward V, usurped by Richard III, murdered in the Tower of London.
Richard III, killed at the Battle of Bosworth.
Historians differ in their assessment of the causes of the Wars of the Roses. Most of them agree that the main underlying reason for the war was a specific variant of feudalism, which developed in England over 13-15 centuries, the so-called bastard feudalism, which will be the main topic of our next post.
The direct reasons for the first 2 civil wars, 1459 to 1471, were defeat in the 100 Years' War and the weak character of Henry VI, who practically stepped down from power for more than a year as a result of mental illness.
But, mostly, the relationship between the king and the nobility was at the root of the causes of the conflict. How did the leading members of the nobility end up having their own private armies which helped them to fight each other and even to threaten the king himself?
To understand what is happening, we need to figure out what this bastard feudalism was. But this is the topic of our next material.